afternoon, Gossip Talk Shows family. Is Namaste here to Gossip Talk Shows. Find your own voice, lead from within. So with me today, I'm with Amanda Marie and Grant Morell. How are you guys?
Good, good. We're just discussing tea before the
Okay, yeah, Amanda's got a beautiful mark. Amanda, do you want to show our audience your mic? Your mark that Grant really loves? I
I
love
was
it
telling him
too.
he needs to come to Canada and go to Banff, and or I will just bring him one whenever I come to London.
Yeah, it's a
Hopefully,
very
because,
nice
because say today's show has been sponsored by.
Um, so, guys, our topic today is how to manage fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety are naturally emotions that help us respond to challenges and threats. However, when they become overwhelming, they can interfere with our daily life. Managing fear and anxiety involves understanding their cause, the roots of the problem, developing coping strategy, and making lifestyle changes that promote emotional well-being. So this topic, I took it from Amanda's newsletter. So Amanda, would you like to explain to our audience about how to manage fear and anxiety on your newsletter?
oh, I don't know which one this was, but definitely I have struggled with anxiety basically my entire life. Even when I was a child, I remember like having to have Pepto-Bismol in my backpack at all times. Otherwise, I'd be like, I have a tummy ache and I need to go home. But if I had like the Pepto-Bismol pills in my backpack, I wouldn't be as stressed. I would know that like I could have something for my tummy if I needed it. And then like now reading so much about anxiety as an adult, I'm like, oh, I probably didn't have a tummy ache. I probably just had anxiety. And I was just like needing that to make sure that I wasn't going to like the tummy ache was essentially caused by anxiety. And then I think sometimes our anxiety like perpetuates our fears. And then it's just like that ongoing cycle of like anxiousness and then fear, and then more anxiousness and then fear. And then it just grows and grows and grows. And to the point where our anxiety can like paralyze us in what we're wanting to do in life. And whatever it is that you're afraid of, it's like you just avoid it for as long as possible sometimes, because that anxiety piece is just like, I just can't get there yet. But once you learn how to manage your anxiety, you're able to begin to like overcome those fears. So I used to be even afraid of, sorry, my kitten is like scratching the carpet. I don't know if you can hear it.
He was
She's
jumping up at
like,
the sofa earlier. It was like I could just see his paws just going.
she's like she's so sweet, but she's a little wild in the mornings. Um, one of the things you can do to manage anxiety actually is have a cat, because I've read about how their purring, they can adjust their like rhythm to help your anxiety, which is amazing.
Wow.
So that's one of the things that you can do too if you're not allergic to cats is to get a cat, because they can adjust their purring to help calm anxiety, which I just think is like phenomenal. Um, what do you think, Grant? I know you work with a lot of different people. How do you coach them to overcome fear and anxiety?
Fish.
Fish? Go fishing?
Fish. Apparently, no, I don't really do it. But just to pick up on what you said about cats, great point. Um, Tropical fish, tanks, apparently is very therapeutic to watch fish. It's a big thing, but it's not what I advise. I mean, it might be, I think, but it's really odd that we should mention this because I was coaching a client recently, a client who's had a lot of trauma in their life and have had a lot of emotions. And they blow up sometimes. You know, they really become very emotional, lots of outbursts and stuff. And did with me a while ago, not the first time. And I, blames people for everything. Blah, 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 blah. And I realized, it's the trauma, it's stuff, it's a lashback. But I can't help but notice how their business results do this with emotion. It affects them, their clients, the team, everything. The suppliers, when their emotions are good, business returns. And in fact, increases a lot. And I was coaching them and I said, well, but what have you learned about managing emotions? And what have you learned? They said, that when I let my emotion, and I said, even to you, you know, I let my emotions burst out to you, and I'm very sorry, I apologize, and blah, 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 blah. And they said, we're so lucky that you understand and I'll make allowances. But the point is, they've learned about managing emotions. And I was like, what have you learned? How important it is, how it affects things. If you can learn to understand, and probably the first part of understanding anxiety is, as we said before, it's awareness. Awareness of what's happening. If your anxiety is coming on board, it's to become aware of it. So we understand the reason that you don't want it. One, it doesn't feel good. Two, it kind of affects everyone around you. It's the atmosphere you create affects everything. We've always said if you walk into a room and there's a bad atmosphere, you can feel it. It's palpable, isn't it? It's true. We feel it, other people feel it. When we're in a bad mood, you can see other people's feelings. Now, I'm not saying anxiety is a bad mood, but it is a bad mood, but it's not like you're grumpy, you're anxious, but it creates it, it radiates. And so that's why we don't want it. But the first way to help to avoid it or to manage it is firstly is awareness. So I would say to people, when it comes to that, ask yourself, what does your anxiety feel like? How do you know you got it? Because you haven't always got it. Probably not, hopefully not. But if you get it sometimes, occasionally or often, how do you know? What do you feel? What does it look like? What does it sound like? Because it might sound like the volume has been turned up in the world, literally. Or it might sound like things are more kind of chaotic. Maybe it's not sound. Maybe it's a feeling. Where is that feeling? Where is it? What I mean is, do you feel it in your head, in your heart? Is it in your gut? Is it in your stomach? Where do you feel? Do your legs just feel like lead? Where do you feel anxiety? So become aware of what that feels like so you can recognize it. That I would say is the first step. What about you, Nomsa? What do you think?
Yeah, I think what you've said, and Amanda, that you need to be aware of it first, where it's coming from, and the roots of the problem as well, because anxiety might be genetic. There's some people like it runs in the family, but you can break the cycle of anything anyway. When it comes to anxiety, it requires a hard work, or you can break it. If it's genetic, you can break it, because some people, they suffer from anxiety and then they will then take their own life because they can't cope with it. They don't know how to cope. So, but then there are some people who have the aware, they are aware of what is going on, and they work on that anxiety to actually to bring it to the level where self-healing, they work on their self-healing. So I think it's really, really important. But then you have others that are in denial. They just deny everything, that this is what is going on in this, and that's where it end up affecting, people get affected. So once you ask yourself, because the anxiety is identifying the source, ask yourself if fear is based on reality or assumptions. Write down your thoughts to gain clarity. I did that myself when I've never ever suffered with anxiety, but when I was going through Satan, I realized that I started suffering from anxiety. So I'll write down my thoughts. Then until I actually realize what he does to bring anxiety to me, then that was the end of it. So me and him, we had to come face to face. I was like, no, if you really become aware, like, of your emotions and how, like, at the time, you write down the time, what the triggers, what triggers it, you write down that. And then in the present moment, the reality, you've got to be present moment. So you will start working out like this anxiety, like if it's genetic, is actually the dad that are being programmed to you to bring that anxiety to carry on. But you can break that cycle by speaking the words, breaking the cycle of anxiety. That any anxiety that is not mine, that is programmed to me to cause distractions, because anxiety can cause distractions. It can cause so many things. So you can say the words of how you feel over and over. In the end, it will go away. So over to you, Amanda.
I like what you said about like people like not knowing about if it's anxiety or if it isn't. And then Nomza talking about how like undiagnosed anxiety can cause like other issues. And I think for I know in myself, and like you talked about anxiety being hereditary, I know for myself that it's in my case it's hereditary, and that my grandma actually was like hospitalized for her anxiety when she was like 30 and had her daughter, my like aunt, and essentially because she was so colicky. And essentially they told her, like, this was way back like so long ago, my grandma's since passed on, but they told her to start smoking because at the time that was the only thing that they knew that would like stop anxiety. And so like basically my grandma smoked her entire life because the doctors told her to start, because at that time that's what they knew would help like ease the anxiety that she struggled with. And so like she struggled with addictions her whole life, with drinking and smoking. And then like I watched that with other members of my family as well. And so I know for myself that I don't want to go down that road. So I like do other things to manage anxiety, which would be like going to yoga, meditating, reading, journaling, taking supplements that are like meant to help ensure that you don't get anxiety. So at one point in time, I was on like pharmaceutical medication for my anxiety, and I went to my doctor. I said, I don't want to be on pharmaceuticals anymore. I want all of the options that I could take that are natural, that would do the same thing as these pharmaceuticals are doing. And so essentially he gave me a list of supplements that I could take that allow me to not be on a pharmaceutical to manage my anxiety and allows me to function without it. And so, but I also still have to do all of these other things. And I think one of the problems with our current medical system is that if you come into the doctor's office and you're like, I'm suffering from these things, and like I have panic attacks, and I do, and I like get like I just freeze in these situations, and I can't stop the thoughts in my head, then they'll just be like, oh, here's a pill, and like you walk out the door and they're like, come back in a month. But that's just like a Band-Aid solution. That's like putting a Band-Aid over something that's like gushing blood. It's not going to do anything other than like make you feel better for a little bit. And in order to really get to the root of the problem, you have to go to counseling. You have to do all of these other things to change how you're showing up in your life. And then that will actually like rewire your brain so that you can overcome your anxiety. And sometimes it comes back and it's like really, really difficult to deal with. But I think that when we're looking at anxiety, it's not just like, here's a pill and you're done. It's how can we look at you holistically to find out what your triggers are? And then when we look at your triggers, how can we like manage it by using like multiple different therapies, right? And so some of that therapy can be journaling, some of that therapy can be going to yoga, some of that therapy can be making sure that you exercise every day. Some of that therapy can be like changing your friend group so that you're showing up with people that are thriving and striving and not keeping you stuck in a space that you don't want to be in. What do you think, Grant? You're muted.
I was indeed. I saw it. Sorry. But yeah, absolutely. You're so right. I think it is about looking at it holistically, looking at the whole viewpoint. As a trained hypnotherapist, I look at various modalities. I look at ways how to approach this with people, because it's often not just the thing. Someone I know is suffering with something. They told me during the week they're suffering with something, and certainly they've got it, but I rather suspect that this thing is laying on top of a lot of anxiety, burnout, anxiety, depression, and I think it's exasperating the symptoms. Is my guess. Um, and there's ways of doing it, because we see things, we literally experience the world differently. I look at things in the ways of your modalities, as in sight, hearing, feeling, taste, and smell. I like to look at things like that. When you say you could, people say, "Oh, you can smell the success." Really? What does that smell like? Because so it's an interesting expression. You know, you could smell the fear. Oh yeah, what does that smell like? You could taste. You know, it left a bad taste in my mouth. Quite literally, things do leave it. So, what is that bad taste? What's it taste like? Yeah. Do you see what I mean? People experience the world differently. I'll just say, just my gut feeling told me it was wrong. Uh-huh. You felt something in your gut, didn't you? What was that? So listen to our body, it will tell us things. So when I said just now about recognizing, about awareness, that's exactly what I mean. What is the awareness that you have? What is, if you're anxious, what's that smell like? What is it? Does everything, I mean, I know when I'm, if I'm in shock or overwhelmed, color seems to go. I tend to start seeing things in black and white, color. The world becomes grey and a little bit tunnel vision. You become, it's like a sucker. That's how I experience it. Okay. Might be different for you. Might just be with you when you said it, might be in your belly. I get a feeling in my belly and vision, but people are different. So it's all about the individual. How do you see it? This is important, because I think how you experience it initially can be the way that you can get out of it. And there's so many techniques to deal with anxiety, but I have a technique which I like to use, a hypnotic technique, which is very, very powerful. Uh, but it's about finding the right method for you. Awareness is the first one, and then I think once you've got the awareness, it's then how you can contain that, because it is about your emotions. And we talk an awful lot about emotions. When your emotions become high, your intelligence becomes lower. In other words, when we're emotional, we make worse decisions. All right. Emotions high, intelligence low. If we can lower our emotions, our intelligence returns. All right. So it's a question of do that. And I've been in many debates with people when it's become a little bit of an argument with people. I say, guys, remember, emotions high, intelligence low. So be aware of that. Be aware of that. So awareness, and how do you personally experience it? Because once you know that, you know the area where you can work on it. And that's what I wanted to add to it. Nomsa, do you have to deal with this? Do you have children who have to deal with it? Do you have clients who have to deal with it? What's your experience?
You're muted.
I have had to deal with my daughter. She was doing her mock exams. She's never failed before in her life. So she does not understand what failed is. So she actually did not take her failure very, very well. So she started really getting stressed. So I had to tell her that she needs to get a life. I was like, you need to get a life, because when you're doing your exams, you're not doing them for us. You're not doing them for anybody. You're doing them for yourself. But if you don't get the results that you want, it's part of life. So you have to understand that it's part of life. But what can I do different to make things better? And sometimes there are things you can change, there are things you can't change in life. So there is no point in stressing and going all hoo-ha So I had to explain to her, because I think for her, she, you know, when children, they're like, okay, my parents are going to be disappointed. So I had to explain to her that I'm not disappointed whether you do well, you don't do well, you're still my daughter, nothing changes. But that part she did understood. And when we made changes, it changed everything. Her behavior went back to normal. So I think it's important for people, it's like if marriage doesn't go according to plan, people go to depression, they get anxiety. If finances, they don't go according to plan, whatever the life, our plans we plan, they don't go to plan. So for me, it's speaking to the situation. Being in the present moment, if my finances don't go according to plan, or if I'm going through financial struggles, I got to speak to my financial struggles. And at the same time, I've got to check in with Satan that is it got anything to do with this anxiety? Then I've got to explain it to my feelings that, listen, feelings, the finances are not going well today, but tomorrow, like today is the 19th, on the 20th, they'll be going fine. So what is the point of me stressing myself? All I have to do is I got to be okay. It's a very, very hard decision mindset to do. I got to be okay. When life it does not make sense, I've got to be okay. Because tomorrow is going to be different. Well, my marriage is not okay today. I've got to be okay for me because tomorrow is going to be sorted out. So you got to have this mindset of like you're fighting against the battles of life. Because if you don't fight against the battles of life using your mindset, the stress, the anxiety will take over. Like Amanda, she comes from a bloodline of anxiety. You can break you can use medication. Number one, you don't get off medication using prayer. You use prayer and medication together, but the prayer is the one that breaks. You got to go to the realm of the spirit to break that cycle of your bloodline. Any generational liability I have inherited, you need to get it out. You need to ask it to get out of your life or your children's life. You need to break it. You keep doing that over and over and over. You keep taking your medication. But if you have the courage to do it for 4 hours or 5 hours, the angel of God will be saying, this person, we need to shut it up and just take that anxiety. They'll take it off you. They'll open your brain, take the anxiety, whatever that is you are asking, they'll take it off you, and then you're okay. But when you're okay, the deal is you got to teach others how that came off you. Because if you don't testify, if you don't tell others, then you will come back. They will just, yeah. So that's how it works. But it's the mindset. I always use, Amanda, that guy that healed himself from a wheelchair you always talk about, that was disabled. That's how you fight your battles with your mindset. And that's how I was able to fight Satan with my mind, spiritually. He uses everything is spiritually intelligence. So when things don't work out, you got to get out of the physically and go to the intelligent and the spiritually and just fight.
Excellent. Love it. That's really getting so spiritual and getting into the intelligence, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Intelligent is all the mind. Everything is the mind. Whatever you do is the mind. Your mind get to decide what you can accept and what you can't.
Love it. Love it. So here's a few things I want to think about. How can you regain from your anxiety? It's getting back into the here and now and seeing that the problem in front of you, the anxiety, is not everything. Depends on the context, depends where you are. But one of the best things you can do is just take 5. Take 5 minutes and remove yourself from the situation. Ideally, depends where you live, depends where you work, if you can get into nature even for 5 minutes, even for 5 minutes to ground yourself. Grounding is a great thing. If possible, like I'm looking out the window, there's grass. It's not a warm day, but if you take your shoes and socks off and just walk on the grass for 5 minutes. I know you may be working in an office block. I get it. I understand. All right. But walk on grass, walk on nature. You literally ground your feet. Very important. If you can't do that, you're in an office block. You know my favorite. You go to the bathroom, right? I've heard yourself out. If you want to celebrate your wins, go to the bathroom, excuse yourself from that environment, from that crowd. Take 5, and visualize that you're walking on grass. If you can't do it for real, because your mind rarely knows the difference between reality and a vision. So trick your conscious mind and think that you're walking on grass. Think that you're grounding yourself. Think that you're in nature, be that forest, by the sea, rock climbing, walking on grass, whatever it is for you. Okay. Think about that. It's so important. Once you've done that, once you've actually done that, you feel better. Then come into the here and now. I spoke about different things such as sight, what you can see. Look at something familiar, because anxiety takes you away from your familiar and puts you into an unknown territory of danger. That's what happens in your mind. But if you can get back to something familiar and comfortable, that's important. So look at something around. Now I'm looking at, there's a lamp over there. I'm looking at that familiar lamp. Oh yeah, I know that lamp. I'm familiar with that lamp. I understand that lamp. I feel safe. I feel grounded. I feel familiar. This takes me out of overwhelm and starts me put into control. Okay. So that's sight. That's something I can see. You can even look at 3 things you can see if you wish. Okay. That's one way. And then apart from that, there's other things I look at. So there's sight. Also, what about hear? What can I hear right now? Well, I can hear my voice because I'm saying something. If I was quiet, perhaps I can hear a noise from another room. Okay, tune into what you can hear, that familiar sound. Okay, what is it you can hear? Or what would you, if you're hearing something and it's an anxious thing you can hear, like a telephone ringing and you don't like it, perhaps that is the source of the anxiety. What else could you imagine hearing? Something you'd like to hear that makes you feel comfortable. Just imagine that in your mind, because as I said, your mind doesn't really know the difference between something you visualize, an imaginary thing, as opposed to reality. If you want any evidence of this, this is why sports people will visualize scoring the goal, winning the set. They visualize it 1,000 times in their mind before they actually do it, because it convinces the mind it's already happened. Future pacing. Very, very important. So if you haven't got the thing you want, imagine you have it. Very, very important. It may sound a bit out there. If you don't believe me, try it and see how it works. Takes a little bit of practice, but it starts to work. So it's what you see something familiar, hear something familiar or comforting. What about feelings? Feelings are very big when it comes to anxiety. It's what kinesthetic is, a feeling. What can you feel that makes you feel good? If you're feeling anxious, what about feeling loved? What about feeling excited? What about feeling that emotion you feel from hearing your favorite song, being with your best friend? Why don't you feel, if I don't know, if something makes you anxious and your best friend, I used to do this, and whatever made me anxious, I knew my best friend would never be anxious by that thing. Would never be anxious by the thing that I found out. He would get anxious about so many things, not the things that make me anxious. But I used to borrow his personality when I felt anxious, because I knew he wouldn't give a damn about those things. Right? So just be like him for that moment, and it would bring me out of overwhelm. Okay. So I borrowed his feeling. Okay. And then Taste, I said earlier, ooh, anxiety leaves you a bad taste in your mouth. Okay. What was that taste? Is it like oranges? Is it like cherries? Is it like grit? I don't know. What is that taste? So what would be a nice taste instead? Is it ice cream? What flavour? What is it? Taste that. And you can taste it. If I say, think of your favourite dish now, think of it and taste it. Really taste it and chew it, sip it, whatever it is. I can taste it. Can you? Can you taste it? Give it, yeah, right. So you can imagine it. Replace that unwanted with the wanted. Okay, very important. And then finally, smell. If something smells bad, I've got a bad as a bad it's a bad smell. Something smells bad. You know. All right, what is that smell? What does that smell like? Anxiety. So, in other words, what would be the absolute opposite of that smell? What would be a great smell that you'd rather smell? Imagine that smell and literally smell it now. If I said to you lavender, you can probably smell lavender, right? Yeah, I can. You know what it smells like. Your memory holds that memory. So what's a nice smell? Chocolate, hot chocolate, lavender? I don't know. You tell me. Whatever it is, smell that instead, and then rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How high was your anxiety at the beginning? And what's the new number? And see your anxiety reduce. That way, you may or may not be able to get rid of anxiety, but you will be able to manage it, reduce it so that you can still function with it and operate your day. Because when you start to feel better and you become less anxious, everybody around you will become less anxious. You, your team, your work colleagues, your family, everything. And when you feel more comfortable in yourself, people feel more comfortable around you and better opportunities come to you. So that's the way that I would approach it. Sometimes that wasn't a hypnotic thing, it's almost like a self-hypnotic. But if I do it in a practice with someone, I have a more stronger way of doing that. Okay. Of actually extracting that feeling and putting inside the feeling that you really want. But it works on a similar basis to that. And I thought I'd just share that with people. Amanda, have you ever heard that before? Have you ever used it before? What do you think?
I haven't, but as you were talking, my daughter's alarm, because it's like 6 a.m. here.
Okay.
My daughter's alarm was like going off in the other room. I'm like, I need to leave and turn that off. She's been like not getting up. But it was like giving me anxiety how loud the alarm was. But it's true, like it's like there are sounds that make you anxious, and an alarm going off in the morning can be one of those for sure. I like the smell and the taste one because I haven't done those ones before. And just when you like pause, right? When you're feeling anxious, whatever it is, it's like there's almost like you just need to distract your mind with something else. And when so like one of the things like I've been doing lately, if I'm feeling anxious at all or just need to get grounded in the moment, is just to play with this little thing because she is like so playful, but she just puts you like right in the moment. Like being in the present moment is one of the things that can help us overcome our anxiety, right? Is being present in this moment and not worrying about the past or worrying about the future. Really, people who are stuck in the past are living in a depression, and then people who are living in the future are anxious. And so when we can put ourselves in this present moment and be truly present, that's where our power is,
Yeah.
because the only like true time that we have is this moment. And
Absolutely.
so when we can bring ourselves to this moment, that's where our power is, and that's where our ability to overcome fear and anxiety really is. Because how often have you really worried about something and been super anxious about it, and then it never happens, or all the anxiety and worrying that you felt for it was like over the top in comparison to how it went, right? And so when you think about that, when we have all this worry, like lots of the things that we worry about don't actually come true, right? So when we can bring ourselves to that present moment and be like, okay, I have no control over this particular thing. I need to not worry about it because all I have power over is this present moment. That's where I can bring my power back to. And Nomza, when you were talking, the book that I've talked about numerous times, and the doctor that does so much research on this is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so he's the one who essentially was told that he wasn't going to be able to walk ever again, and he knew the power of visualization and visualized everything getting restructured and put back together in his spine. His research is amazing, the power of our brains, and his book called You Are the Placebo is one of my favorite books. I've reread that book a number of times, and I think if you are struggling from fear and anxiety, that you definitely should start either watching podcasts by Joe Dispenza or reading his books, because they're phenomenal.
He really is something. And you're the second person today to mention the name. Second person today to mention that, and he is quite phenomenal with a lot of the work he does. He does a lot for people, and you're right. You know, it's true. You are the placebo. You understand, and you know, one of my favorite documentaries I saw was called "Not Just a Placebo." Okay, not plus a placebo, not just a placebo, because when people say, "Oh, it's just a placebo," no, it's not just. Don't negate it. Placebo is incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. You know, again, if I said to you, "Yeah, I've got this special tablet that will, you know, make you rich, healthy, and powerful and attractive," but it's an expensive tablet. It's a very expensive, and you got to take the tablet just the right way. People will buy into it because you buy into and which goes to prove that you can do so many things in life. You can do an awful lot if you choose to do so, but you need to do it, and you need to do it correctly. And but if you do it, the power of the mind is incredible. Mind over matter, as my father used to say when I was a little kid. It's all mind over matter, which was an incredible thing for him to say. And I used to watch him, for example, untightening something. So it was very tight, like a very tight screw. And he would look at it and he would try to do it with physical strength, it wouldn't work. And he would just sit there and go quiet and just look at it and go, and open it. And I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I can see myself opening it." He was visualizing it. And he put less effort in and just opened it. Quite incredible. And I saw that as a small child. And he was not an holistic kind of guy. Well, he probably was, but he's not what you think of. He's a very feet on the ground sort of man's man, you know. And but no, that's what he did. The power of your mind. You have untapped energy inside you if you only knew it. So anxiety is what I might call an external control. You're allowing externals to control you. And we all do to some extent. I'm not vilifying you if you are like that, because we all are at times. We get caught unawares, we get shocked, and we get pulled out of our flow. Okay. And it happens. It sideswipes us. It comes from the left field, all these different expressions that we use. And it does. But if you can recognize it and think, what's happening to me? What's happening? What's happening? Oh, that thing's happening. That's your awareness. That side swipe, that side punch, that out of the flow, overwhelm, that's starting to happen. I've seen this pattern before, and that's what's happening to me. Stop that. Allow it to stop right there. I'm not having this. What do I want to feel instead? What do I want to see instead? What do I want to hear instead? What do I want to taste and smell instead? Practice it, because when it happens, you want to be able to click them in super quick. And when you do, you will regain control. This is very liberating, because rather than being affected by things out here, out of your control, by the world, the universe, me, you, or other people, it's the thing, the company. If you stop being controlled by that and you take personal responsibility and personal control, you are then empowered, and you can live life on your terms. Is it a responsibility? Yeah. Is it liberating? You bet. You bet. You try it. It's wonderful. So stop giving your power to other people, other things. We said it here years ago in business. Oh, Brexit. Brexit, that's the reason why business is down. I get some businesses were more affected by Brexit, but some people made a fortune because of Brexit. Why? It's your attitude. Are you willing to change, pivot, take control, or just lay back and say, well, that's it. There's nothing I can do about it. You can change, can't you? You can change direction. You can change tactic. You don't like your job? Could you get your CV polished up? Could you look for interviews? Could you perhaps work on yourself to come across better in interviews? Could you learn how to conduct better interviews? Could you learn how to give better, be better at interviews? Could you learn to calm your nerves? Could you then get a different job? Then that job problem wouldn't be a problem, would it? Because it's gone. You've taken control to do something about your destiny. In that relationship that doesn't work out, try to solve it, try to communicate, try to resolve it. If you can't, perhaps it's time to move on. Take control. You can do things if you choose to, if you give power to yourself. And if you do that, there isn't much room for anxiety, and you'll fall in love with a new version of yourself. That's my thoughts. Nomsa, are you in love with yourself?
I like what you're saying, Grant, that we only are in control in our lives, in our situation. We are the creator of our destiny. If you look at it now, Amanda has her bloodline that suffers from anxiety, but she has chosen to stand out, to create her own life, be the woman that God created her to become, by acknowledging what she's going through and working on that, and mindfulness, and just becoming, like it is saying, anxiety, you won't defeat me. I am who I am, and that's why she's here today at Ngozi Talk Shows. But unfortunately, there are some people who are in her situation that the doctors have drugged them with the medication. They can't even remember the present moment because of that situation. And Grant, you said that sometimes the anxiety can take you to, when you visualizing, you said to the sports people, they visualize winning the game, and they go off and they win the game. And that is really important. That's what life is about. You have to visualize, you have to speak what you want.
Yeah.
People might have ideas of what they think of you as a person, but they don't define you. I've watched people going down because of other human beings. But you got to understand that your life is your life. You create your life. You got to look at people and say, you can't bring me down. And that's what you do with anxiety. You speak to the anxiety, speak to the situation, and tell that situation how you are going to design your life. I know some people might say, no, it's not easy. Everything is the strength within you. That strength within you, you work on your weaknesses and you rise up and say, I refuse to be this. I refuse to live like this, but I choose. Amanda has done it. Somebody else can done it, to say, I choose to do this. She goes to school and she teaches children, but some people don't have that opportunity because they let the problems defeat them. They let anxiety defeat them. But anxiety is there. So if you know that the anxiety is there, you gotta wake up, be in the present moment, snap out of it. Like Grant, you were talking about, if a relationship is not working well, there are some people, relationship don't work well, they'll go and blame themselves for what they did wrong, what their spouse did wrong. They've got all this list of crucifying themselves. If things are not going well, is learning experience. What have I learned in that situation? Instead of me crucifying myself, instead of making anxiety more more people get this anxiety because of what they do to themselves.
Yeah.
They have no mercy for
Self-imposed.
themselves. They just blame and blame and blame. Instead of like, okay, Grant is at Nkosi Talk Shows. I don't feel too good. What can I do to contact Grant? It's a phone call. You need a phone. You need an email to contact Grant, Amanda, or Nomsa and say, listen, this is what is going on in my life. People don't do it. Even if it's free, they don't do it. They will prefer to go down.
That's right. That's right. I will. I think people don't. It's down to belief. I think if you believe you can change it, if you believe you can change your, and a lot of it is down to our environment, what we're given to believe. Yeah, if they say that's it, that's life, nothing you can do about it, people will believe that and they will accept it, and then you're a slave to it, as Noms will say. But if you're not, you say I can change it. That's it. That's why we talk about understanding, recognition, awareness of it. It's happening. And then look at the reality and look at then what you'd rather have instead. Take responsibility to change it. And it's a really nice feeling. A really nice feeling because every day you're then getting better and celebrate those successes. When you feel better, you managed your anxiety better. Well, celebrate that. Give yourself a pat on the back. You did very well. That's a good thing to recognize yourself, love yourself, and that will improve you as well. That will send good chemicals to your mind and you will feel good. And you can start to manage anxiety and start to live again, laugh again, and love again. That's it.
So much of it too is like our habits, right? Is what we just like naturally do each and every day. And when we want to change something, we have to change our habits, like what our natural go-to constantly is. And so if your natural go-to is come home from work and just like lay on the couch and watch TV, but you're like out of shape and not feeling good about yourself, then like how can you change that? Well, you need to change your habit, right? And make your habit something like instead of coming home straight from from work, you go to the gym and work out for like 30 minutes or go for a walk or something so that your natural habit just becomes that you always go to the gym or that you always get up at a certain time and you do this in the mornings so that it just becomes like who you are, right? And so if you want to become like I don't know, a long distance runner, then you have to like start running, right? And you like have to just like embody what it is that you want to become. And so when we're struggling with something, we're like looking outwards, more like, I want that. Well, it's like, how do you become that person? How do you become that person who is doing the things that you want to be doing? Well, like take those steps and become that person yourself, right? And so what is it that you have to do? Who is it that you have to surround yourself with? What is it that you should be reading if you want to become that person? What is it that you should be doing each and every day if you want to become that person, and then continuously do that?
Absolutely. Be what we call be, do, have, isn't it? Yeah, become it in your mind, see it, feel it, visualize it. Become it in your mind, then make a list of the things you need to do in order to achieve that. And then you have it. Be, do, have. Yeah. Yeah, it's in simple terms. And it's great. And it's pretty straightforward if only you wrap your head around the idea and decide, make a decision to do it. That's good. Yeah.
Any words of encouragement, guys?
I think no matter what it is that you're struggling with right now, whether it's fear or anxiety or a combination of both, there are steps that you could take even just today to like be like, I'm going to start taking control of this, right? I'm going to learn to be present in the moment. When I see my mind racing about something from the past or something from the present or from the future, I'm going to bring myself to this present moment because that's the part that I can control. I'm going to look at my life as a holistic from a holistic perspective and be like, if I want to become this better version of myself, what is it that I need to do today to take the steps to do that? And as you begin to do that, those will become your habits. And then when you continuously do that, you will shift your life completely. Grant.
Love it. Love it. Yep, I think you've nailed it really there, Amanda. It's decide to do something about it. Once you make a decision, you are empowered. When you feel empowered, you will feel better. You can feel more power, and your flow will return. Your natural flow state will return. Once you decide to do something about it, you are then in control of the situation, of the outcome. And most things can be solved. Most things can be solved. Not everything, but most things can. And the vast majority of things we worry about, we think they're going to be a permanent thing. No, they're not. They're normally a temporary inconvenience. You can deal with it or change it in most cases. So decide, understand that you can control it, and then decide and do something about it. Make a plan. Once you make a plan, it's brilliant. Make a plan and tick it off, just like a project. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Where are you on the stage of the plan? Once you do that, you feel much better. When you feel better, the symptoms reside anyway. But remember, also use those 5 modalities that I told you. Those 5 modalities. Look at what does it look like when you're feeling overwhelmed? What does it look like? What would you like to see? What would you like to visualize instead? Visualize that. What does it hear? What kind of sound is associated with anxiety? Well, what would you like to hear instead? Just imagine that sound. What does it feel like? Where would you like to feel a good feeling? Where's your good feelings? Remember that good feeling and replace it with that. What about the taste? If anxiety leaves a bad taste in your mouth, what is a lovely taste? What is a lovely flavour? Perhaps your favourite meal. Remember that flavour. And if it's smell, if there's a smell you don't like, oh, I hate that smell. It depresses me, makes me feel anxious. Okay, fine. What smell do you like? Is it a perfume? Is it an aroma? Is it a wine? Is it food? What is it? Smell that instead. And you can just do it because your mind knows it, because it memorizes it. We have memory. You know you have memory. Everything you do in your life works on memory. So you can memorize these things and you can recall them when you choose to. So decide and make choices. That's my words of wisdom. Nomsa, over to you.
My words of wisdom, guys, is the same thing what Amanda said in Grant. How you respond to every situation is how your tomorrow is going to look like. Obviously, your tomorrow has to be different. So if you respond to anxiety in a bad way, that's how your tomorrow is going to be. Seek support. Don't be embarrassed. Don't feel ashamed. It's part of life. Everything that we go through in life is part of life. Face it and know it's going to work out just fine. Know that you are the creator of your destiny and speak to that anxiety. Show the anxiety who is in charge. If you are in charge, you will take over the anxiety. God bless everyone and live with grace. If you're watching us from any other social media, please do share. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We have 2 groups, Unique Billionaire Mindset and Bossy Talk Shows. And please go to the website as well, www.hseia.coach. You're looking to find your own voice for coaching, go to the section for coaching. And looking for love, go to the section for love. God bless. See you tomorrow, guys.